There's a photograph from 2021 that still breaks me. A man holding a dying gorilla in his arms, her head resting against his chest, his face buried in her fur. She'd known him her entire life. He was the first person to hold her when she was found clinging to her murdered mother's body. And 14 years later, he held her again as she took her last breath. Her name was Ndakasi, and this is the story of a gorilla who lost everything and somehow found a reason to keep living until she couldn't anymore. Virunga National Park, Democratic Republic of Congo, April 16, 2007. Deep in the misty forests of the Virunga Mountains, a baby mountain gorilla was born. Her mother named her Ndakasi, though we don't know what that name meant to them, only what it would come to mean to us. She was born into the Kabirizi family, which is made up of 9 gorillas total. Her father was Senkwekwe, a powerful silverback. Her mother was Nyiransekuye, a name that means someone happy to welcome others. There were 3 other adult females and 3 other babies. They lived together in the dense forest, moving through the trees, foraging for food, playing, grooming, protecting each other. According to research, mountain gorilla families are tightly bound together, almost like one heartbeat. A mother never lets go of her baby. She carries it everywhere for the first 6 months, holding it close through rain and cold. The silverback, the father, stands guard, ready to fight anything that comes near. The aunts help too, grooming the little one, sharing food, keeping the baby safe. They live like a small village, talking in grunts, barks, hoots, and soft laughs that only they understand. They play in the grass, they tease each other, and when one of them dies, they sit in silence, mourning just like we do. So for the first 2 months of her life, Ndakasi lived in a world that felt completely safe. Her mother carried her everywhere, through the forest, under the rain, and even while resting at night. Surrounded by her family's love and protection, she had no reason to fear anything. But in the Democratic Republic of Congo, safety doesn't really exist. The forests look peaceful from a distance, but they hide danger everywhere. Armed groups move through the region, hunting animals for meat and killing anyone who stands in their way, including park ranger. And in June 2007, that danger reached Ndakasi's family, and everything she knew about safety was gone. In June 2007, in Virunga National Park, a group of armed men walked into the forest. No one really knows why they went after the Kabirizi gorilla family. Some people think they wanted meat. Others say they were angry at the park rangers for protecting the animals. Many people think it was just senseless violence in a region where life has little value. But what we do know is this: they shot and killed 7 members of the family. Senkwekwe, the silverback who's Ndakasi's father. Nyiransekuye, her mother, was hit several times and killed. 3 other adult females were also killed, and even 2 baby gorillas didn't survive the massacre. Park rangers later found their bodies scattered across the forest. The massacre was done on purpose. The whole Kabirizi gorilla family was wiped out in one single attack. It was one of the worst tragedies the park had ever seen. When the rangers came the next morning, the forest was silent. Then they saw what was left behind: blood on the ground, bodies everywhere. It was hard to believe this was the same place that had been full of life just a day before. Then one of the rangers heard something, a small, weak sound, a cry. They followed it through the trees and found a baby gorilla. It was Ndakasi. She was holding on to her mother's body, trying to drink milk that would never come. Her tiny hands gripped her mother's fur, her face pressed against her chest, still looking for warmth that was gone. She didn't understand what had happened. She didn't know her mother was dead. She just knew she was cold, hungry, and alone. One of the rangers, a man named Andre Bauma, slowly walked toward her, and Ndakasi screamed and held on tighter, terrified. But Andre didn't stop. He knelt down, spoke softly, and gently lifted her away from her mother's body. Ndakasi was the only one left alive, and she was dying. Ndakasi was in critical condition. She was severely dehydrated, malnourished, in shock. Without her mother's milk, without warmth, without touch, she wouldn't survive more than a day or two. The rangers rushed her to a rescue center in Goma, a city near the park. But even there, her chances were almost zero. Baby mountain gorillas are incredibly fragile. They need constant warmth, constant feeding, constant physical contact. And more than that, they need emotional connection. According to primatologist research, infant gorillas who lose their mothers often die not from physical causes, but from psychological trauma. They shut down, they stop eating, they give up. Andre Bauma knew this, so that first night, he did something extraordinary. He took off his shirt and held Ndakasi close to his chest so she could feel his warmth. He kept her there all night, skin to skin. He fed her with a small bottle, whispered to her in Swahili, and gently rocked her to sleep. He didn't close his eyes once. Slowly, she started to calm down. Her breathing became steady. Her hands, which had been shaking, began to relax. By morning, she was still alive. But her fight wasn't over. In the days that followed, she got very sick with pneumonia. The gorilla doctors thought she wouldn't survive, but Andre refused to give up. He fed her, held her, and stayed awake night after night, hoping she would make it. And hopefully, she became better. The Senkwekwe Center is located in Rumangabo, inside Virunga National Park. It's not a zoo. It's not a traditional sanctuary. It's a home for gorillas who can't survive anywhere else. When Ndakasi arrived, she met another orphan, a young female gorilla named Ndeze. Ndeze had also survived the 2007 massacre. She was also rescued by Andre. The two became inseparable. According to staff at the center, Ndakasi and Ndeze acted like sisters. They played together, slept together, groomed each other. They developed their own routines, their own games, their own language. And Andre? He became their surrogate father. He spent hours with them every day. He knew their personalities, their moods, their favorite foods. He knew when Ndakasi was sad, when she was playful, when she needed comfort. Years passed, and Ndakasi grew. She became curious, intelligent, playful. She loved being around people. She'd watch the caretakers work. She'd mimic their movements, and had a great sense of humor. In April 2019, a ranger named Mathieu Chamavu took a selfie at the center. Ndakasi and Ndeze photobombed it, standing upright on 2 feet, bellies out, looking directly at the camera with what can only be described as cheeky grins. The photo went viral. Millions of people saw it. It became one of the most famous animal photos of all time. People thought it was staged, but it wasn't. According to Virunga National Park, Ndakasi and Ndeze were imitating the rangers. They've watched humans stand upright so many times, they started doing it themselves. It was a moment of pure joy, pure personality, pure life. The world fell in love with Ndakasi that day. But what most people didn't know when they shared that photo is what she has been through, what she'd lost, what she'd survived, and what she was still going through. Because even though Ndakasi had a new family, even though she was loved, even though she seemed happy, she never forgot what happened to her family. Gorillas have extraordinary memories. They recognize faces years later. They remember traumatic events. They grieve. And Ndakasi carried the death of her family throughout her entire life. Staff at the center reported that she would sometimes sit alone, staring into the distance. She'd touch her chest, the same place where she used to cling to her mother, because she remembers everything. And in 2021, her body started to remember too. In early 2021, Ndakasi started losing weight. She stopped eating as much. Her hair began to fall out. The caretakers noticed immediately. They called in veterinarians from gorilla doctors. They ran tests. They tried treatments. But the diagnosis was devastating. Ndakasi was dying. She had been suffering from a prolonged illness. Her condition rapidly deteriorated. There was nothing they could do. On the evening of September 26, 2021, Andre Bauma sat with Ndakasi in her enclosure. She was 14 years old. She was weak. She was in pain. Andre held her the same way he'd held her that first night in 2007, against his chest, skin to skin, whispering to her. And at 10 p.m., Ndakasi took her last breath in the loving arms of the man who had saved her life. When Virunga National Park announced her death on October 7th, they released a photograph. It shows Andre holding Ndakasi as she passed. His face is buried in her chest. His arms are wrapped around her, looking so much devastated. The photo is heartbreaking, but it's also beautiful, because after everything Ndakasi has been through, from losing her family to surviving a massacre, then living a life she was never supposed to live, she didn't die alone. She died loved. In his statement, Andre said, "It was a privilege to support and care for such a loving creature, especially knowing the trauma Ndakasi suffered at a very young age. It was Ndakasi's sweet nature and intelligence that helped me to understand the connection between humans and great apes, and why we should do everything in our power to protect them. I am proud to have called Ndakasi my friend. I loved her like a child, and her cheerful personality brought a smile to my face every time I interacted with her. She will be missed by all of us at Virunga, but we are forever grateful for the richness Ndakasi brought to our lives during her time at Senkwekwe." Thousands of people around the world mourned her, the gorilla who photobombed a selfie, the gorilla who made us laugh, but more than that, the gorilla who survived, who loved, who mattered. I think about Ndakasi a lot, not just because her story is tragic, but because of what she represents. She lost everything, her family, her home, her future, and yet she found a way to live, to love, to find joy. That viral photo, the one where she's standing behind Mathieu, grinning at the camera, that wasn't just a funny moment. It was proof that even after unimaginable trauma, there's still room for happiness. But here's what breaks me. Ndakasi should never have needed to be rescued in the first place. She should have grown up in the forest with her family. She should have learned to forage, to build nests, to raise her own babies. She should have lived wild and free. But human conflict took that from her. The same conflict that's still happening in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The same violence that's still threatening mountain gorillas today. In 2007, when Ndakasi was born, there were 720 mountain gorillas left. Today, thanks to conservation efforts and the work of people like Andre, there are over 1,000. That's progress, that's hope. But it's also a reminder. Every single one of those gorillas has a story, a family, a life that matters. Ndakasi's story went viral because of a photo, but her real story, the one about survival, about resilience, about love in the face of loss, That's the one that deserves to be remembered. She was born into violence. She survived against impossible odds. She brought joy to everyone who knew her. And when she died, she was held by someone who loved her. Her name was Ndakasi, and she mattered.